You'll know when you have a wild woman. She'll practice her craft without boundaries. She is truly autonomous. Her loyalty is only to the family she serves. She will not allow herself to be held back by a system she didn't create.
This podcast is for the birth keepers who want to grow and change, who are open to learning through self-reflection and supportive community. We are creating a space to explore without judgment. We are remembering we were born wild. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Born Wild podcast. I'm your host today, Sophia, and I have with me Carissa.
I'm the assistant.
And we are interviewing Amber. Amber, will you introduce yourself for the listeners?
Hello, my name is Amber Brown, and I am actually a birth photographer and family photographer in the Sacramento, Northern California area. I've been doing that for a few years now, and yeah.
Awesome. How did you get to be where you are right now? Like, why birth photography? I think it's a very unique job to have.
Absolutely great question. I started my photography journey in the wedding industry, doing elopements and weddings and working with couples. And then I had my son in 2022. I had a home birth with him, and I had my own birth photographer. We hired somebody for that, and that experience just kind of opened my eyes to birth photography. I had a I had this desire born out of the birth of my child and the birth of me as a mom to really dive into that niche of photography. And I didn't know where it would take me. I just wanted to offer a different perspective to the birth photography in the area. And I just have been doing it ever since, and I absolutely love it. And that led me to get into more like family photography. I'm actually not doing weddings at all anymore. So I do family, maternity, and branding along with birth photography, but birth is just like, it's what lights me up for sure.
Yeah. I feel like it's a really common story for anyone who works close to birth that it like stems from their own experience, whether it was like not a good one and now they want to XYZ, or it was amazing and so they want to capture it. And yeah.
Absolutely.
Will you go a little bit into your birth story?
Sure. So I actually have two. I have two sons. I have a 3-year-old and a 11-month old. He's 11 months old this week. And so I had both of them at home. Deciding to do home birth was just something that like it was not a no-brainer for me, but it was something that I just was like set on from even before we even talked about having kids. I told my husband when we were dating, I'm gonna have a home birth, and he's like, we're gonna what? Okay, cool.
So
We never really talked.
how did you know about home birth? Like, how was that in your awareness?
Honestly, I didn't really know anything about home birth. Nobody in my circle had ever had a home birth. I didn't know anybody personally who had their babies at home. I like my mom raised us a little bit like more holistically. Like we always like went to the herbal cabinet for whenever we were sick and things like that. And then I had my own set of chronic health issues that we like had worked through. And I had really taken ownership of my own health and wellness and just like the state of my body leading into, pre-conception and having babies and all of that. And so because of all of that, I think it was kind of just a natural path of like, this is what we're going to do. I had been witness to some hospital births, and I remember leaving one in particular of a family member, and I left, and my husband at the time, he was my husband at the time, after dating, getting married, all that. And I looked at him and I said, barring a life or death situation, I never want to have children in a hospital. I never want to do that.
To clarify, you hadn't had children yet when you had these. So you had been to a couple births in
I
like
had
what capacity?
family member.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I was a family
Not
member.
photographer necessarily.
I was snapping a couple photos, but it wasn't anything that I was really like, knowledgeable about. And so, yeah, I remember leaving that experience and telling my husband that I will, again, unless I am bleeding out or dying, like do not ever want to give birth in a hospital. It was just an experience it weighed on me, to be honest, and just the energy and the way that the mom was spoken to and all of that. And I just wasn't okay with it. And then early in 2021, I got pregnant with our first child, and we immediately hired a midwife team. Unfortunately, that pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. However, our midwives walked us through the entire thing, and I was fortunate enough to be able to miscarry at home with my midwife. And if anything, that experience just showed us what midwifery care was. We walked through that experience, and any kind of like hesitations my husband might have had was like they were fully like gone because of the care we received through that experience. And he was always the one that was like, you're the one giving birth. Like, I don't care where it is as long as you feel comfortable and safe. So we had that experience. I got pregnant with my oldest son less than a month after our miscarriage. So it was all very it's quite the roller coaster of emotions, and just like physically and mentally and emotionally. And again, just walking through those first weeks and that time with my midwives, it was so supportive. Being able to have someone that truly cared about us and our experience. And you guys know this, like every midwife appointment is not just like 10 minutes. It's very in-depth, it's very thorough. And so it was just a huge blessing to be able to have that kind of care, especially through the experience that we had. And then so my oldest was born in March 2022, and that was I had 24 hours of labor with him total. My midwives weren't there the whole time because I hadn't called them, and I just was like letting them know what was going on. I kind of was one of the moms that is very like, I don't want to say I'm type A because I'm not. I'm kind of a good combo, but I like to be in control. I like to know what's up, and I like to be able to like navigate something to the best of my ability. So I had listened to all the podcasts. We had done a birth course, and I just like I had the TENS unit, I had the birth tub, I had all these things that I was like, okay, like this is how I'm going to get through this.
You had the whole Bula bag for yourself.
I did. I really did. And so I want to say the first like 12 to 18 hours, I kind of just like did it by myself. I told my husband, I'm like, you go sleep. And then I just kind of did intuitively, like went into the mile circuit. I went on the toilet, like I went onto my birth ball, and I just kind of had this like rotating rhythm of doing that for the entire night. And then I want to say, goodness, that lasted about 20 21 hours. My midwives ended up coming the morning that my son was born, and she gave me a Benadryl because I hadn't slept, and I couldn't, like, I was having this like breathing thing where I couldn't breathe through my nose, and I'm like, I can't do my breathing techniques. And so all of that. And so I rested, and then we were like debating, okay, like, does she take another one? Does she just rest? And I remembered like not wanting to take the second Benadryl because my mom had gone out and gotten it, and it had dye in it. And I was like, I wanted the dye-free option. And that's what was going through my head. So, which is very silly looking back, but I'm so glad I didn't take the second dose because I was laying in bed just like trying to relax into the contractions, and I had this one really big surge and my water broke. And so I got into the shower, and I had hot water, and my husband's like, okay, like what do we do? I was like, the midwife needs to get here now. And he's like, are you sure? I was like, the midwife and the photographer, they need to get here now. And he's like, okay. I was like, now. I was like very like adamant. I throughout that birth experience, I definitely like I think my natural reaction going into it, because it was the first time I'd ever given birth or anything like that, I definitely disassociated a lot. And that had been kind of a coping mechanism from like my past with any kind of painful or really intense situations. And I kind of had checked out. And so by the time I got into the birth tub, I really didn't know. My midwife had got here, they had set up the birth tub and all of that. But by the time I had gotten in there, I didn't really know like what was happening or what was going on around me. I was very disconnected from my body. Because I felt like I was like watching myself from above. And so it was a very weird feeling. when my baby was being born, my midwife told me like reach down and feel it, like you can feel him there. And I was like in complete denial, like, no, like that's not what's happening. Like just all the things. I was just kind of in this place of like, okay, I don't know how long this is going to last, but I have to get through it. Because as soon as my water broke, I didn't really get a break on contractions. It was just like surge after surge. And so yeah, so he was born, I experienced the fetal ejection reflex. So I did zero pushing during that labor experience. And so my midwife ended up having to catch him because I wasn't, like I said, I was very disconnected. I felt like I had to come back in my body. And then she like handed him up to unwrapped his cord and then handed him up to me. And so
I
that
got a
was
little lost. Were you in the tub or did you get out of the tub?
no, fully in the tub. I was
You could
begging
get
to
out.
get in the tub. Yeah. And it was great. I had a great experience with them. The midwife team I used for my first, they had asked me to get out of the tub postpartum, and get straight into bed, and then I birthed the placenta. They started doing some like a little bit of traction, and I was like, please get off of me. And so I had ended up like standing up to like let gravity help get placenta out, but I knew that I didn't want anybody like pulling on anything. And so I was able to like voice those preferences. But yeah, so that was kind of my story with my oldest. And then with my second, I feel like every birth experience, every chapter of motherhood just teaches you something new and you just learn something new about yourself or just so many aspects of life just align with like different like things in your pregnancy and your birth. And after getting pregnant with my second at 7 weeks, we ended up having to go to the ER because I had well, we didn't know at the time, but like a ruptured ovarian cyst. And so we went in, got checked out. Everything was fine. I was just in pain for a couple of days, but I was really struggling because obviously with my oldest getting pregnant so soon after a miscarriage, I did feel so disconnected like the entire pregnancy. And I think that led into my birth experience. And I just felt like I was navigating like something that was supposed to be the happiest time of my life, also like in the deepest grief that I'd ever felt. And so going into getting pregnant with my second, obviously like I still had all those fears of like, okay, what if this baby doesn't stick around? Like what happens if we lose another baby and all of that? And I really had to just like focus and be intentional about connecting with my pregnancy and with that baby. And I decided early on, like, no, I want to feel connected to my child early. I want to feel connected in my body and in this pregnancy. And even throughout the scare, like I was like grappling with like not wanting to connect, but also forcing myself to acknowledge like this little life inside of me because even if like I did lose that baby, like I still wanted to like make the most of every moment that I had with them. So thank goodness like he was healthy and nothing happened and it was totally fine. But that was something that I had like worked through those early weeks. We had a different midwife this time. I had met her as I had gotten into the birth world and birth photography. I had met her, and the instant I met her on a birth, I was like, I need her to be my next midwife. Like, I just love her so much. And so we had chosen to go with her, Mackenzie. I think you know her. So, yeah, so everything went really, like, really well throughout my pregnancy after that point. And into my second son's birth, I just had this like focus of like, okay, just I want to be connected. I want to be present. I don't want to be checked out during this labor and birth experience. I had been battling with like having a couple of my friends come over, and that was really scary for me because I'm like, well, I just feel so much more like raw and vulnerable, and like I have to have that accountability of somebody being there. And that feels really, for some reason, it felt really scary to me. But I had also seen the way that women support, like having a woman hold and support you through birth. I've seen that. I've been a part of it. And I was like, I do want to experience that for myself. It was just like something that I have a hard time accepting help. I have a hard time like being vulnerable or in other people's presence. So that was really scary for me. But I think it like 36 or 37 weeks, I was like, you know what? I want this. And so I told them, I was like, you guys are on call. I'm gonna like, I want you there, and I want you to be part of my birth teams. Both my sons were born earlier. My oldest was at 38.5, and my second was at 39 weeks, exactly. So at 38, 37 and a half, 38 weeks, I started getting really antsy with my second. I'm like, okay, is this like happening? I had a few days where I just had like almost prodromal type labor. And I was like, I don't really love this. And so I was just trying to like relax and enjoy all the time and be really intentional, especially with my oldest. Like we were like little besties doing all the things together, and I knew the dynamic was about to change. And so I just wanted to spend all the time and soak up all the one-on-one time with him that I could get. The day before I went into labor with my second, it was my husband and my anniversary, and we just stayed home. We had a family day. We played like board games. It's like I had a feeling in like intuitively that something was coming, but obviously like when you're in the moment, you're like, okay, something's coming, but it could be like 3 weeks from now. It could be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then the morning of my second son's birthday, I was cuddling my oldest in bed, and I had a contraction, and I was like, okay, it's time. And I felt at peace. And I knew exactly, like, with my oldest, I knew exactly when labor had started. There was no question about it. Even once prodromal, like dealing with the prodromal labor stuff, it's different. Like there's a shift that I felt. And so I felt that, and I said, okay, time to call the people, time to call my midwife. My poor midwife had just gotten home from birth. She's like, I'm gonna shower and stuff. I'm like, please, like, take your time. Like, I was like, we had 24 hours with the first one. Like, it's fine. Like, take your time. But I called my friends and my birth photographer who's coming. And so they came, they started like heading my way. My birth photographer for my second birth was also my good friend. So it was really special to have her there. And yeah, so everybody started heading my way. And then I just, was trying to like finish getting the house stuff like taken care of and trying to make breakfast for my oldest. And my husband had actually gone to the gym, and I called him. I was like, hey, you should probably come home. And then my son, had no idea what was going on. So he's like trying to play basketball with me. And I'm like, mommy's having a contraction. So like if
Aw.
we can chill on the basketball right now. And so he ended up getting picked up by one of our friends. And so I was able to focus. And then my birth team started to arrive. And I remember my friend Brooke, who's my photographer, and um she got there first, and she was just like kind of just holding space for me, and I was just like pacing the house, and I don't know, I felt a little bit, I think I still had a lot of fear of like what this was going to be like trying to stay so much in my body. Like I it just felt so overwhelming to me of like this is something I wanted, but I was also so scared of it because I was like, what if I can't do it without disassociating? What if that's like the way I get through it? And so everything was going fine. I was progressing, and just like I tried to just like go with my body, like whatever my body's feeling is like I move a lot. I can't stay still. And then my midwife arrived, and everybody was just kind of like doing their thing while I labored. My husband was there. I felt like I needed him a lot more this time. And so he was right there with me for pretty much all of it. And then once I started hitting transition, I knew that I was hitting transition. I laugh now because I just started pacing the house like very intensely, like down the hall. We have this like long hallway, and I felt like I wanted to get out of my body. I was like trying, I felt like that's what I was fighting. And so I was pacing the house, and then all of a sudden I was just like, I can't, I need like everybody gone. Like I can't do this. Like my body like was just like, I was having a panic attack essentially. But Mackenzie came in, my midwife, and she's an absolute angel. And she, asked everybody to leave the room. And she just like, this is in the middle of the day, by the way. Like I've had both bright full daytime labor. So it was like, I don't even know what time it is, the time it was. It was probably like 1 or 2 p.m. No, that's not true because he was born. It's probably like 12 o'clock-ish. So she's like shutting the shades and shutting the curtains, and then I put on headphones and I started playing my birth playlist. And she just helped me get grounded again and get like reconnected to what was happening and feeling my baby. So like my husband and I laid on our bed together and he just held me while I had contractions. And then after a few minutes of that, or a little while of that, I was like, okay, I want you guys to get the birth tub ready. So I just like laid there still, having contractions, headphones on so that I couldn't hear what was happening because it felt like too not it wasn't chaotic, but it felt like too much commotion. I wanted to be able to focus. And then once that was ready, I got into the birth tub. And again, just kept my headphones on and like everything was happening around me, but I just wanted to stay so like connected to my body. I was able to like feel him come down. I was doing checks on myself and I got to like feel his head and feel him come down. And I felt all those things, which was like funny because I had done this before, but this was the first time that I was actually experiencing all of those things. So it was really fun. And I remember looking at my husband and being like, okay, this hurts a lot more. And he's like, I'm sure it hurts about the same. I'm like, no, no, no. I actually feel it this time and it hurts a lot more. And he's like, okay. But yeah, about I don't even know like honestly my like the time frames of things because I was so like not paying attention to any of that. But not very long into being into the birth tub, I finally got into the pushing stage and I could feel him coming down. Yeah, I ended up having to, I was experiencing fetal ejection, but like at a much slower pace. Like I had to control it a lot more, and like slow it down and push a little bit more. So I was feeling that with my first, his head came like everything came out all at once with him. And then with my second, like his head was coming out very slowly. And then I felt it stop at his shoulders. And then it was all happening way too slowly for my like
And you're deeply in your body that time. You're like very slow.
I was like, this is all very slow. And then finally his shoulders came and I was able to like catch him and pull him out of the water. And Mackenzie just supported me while I unwrapped the cord from his body. And yeah, it was very beautiful. I remember talking to her after. I was like, yeah, and like however long, like pushing him forever. She's like, Amber, how long do you think you were pushing for? I was like, an hour at least. And she's like, Amber, you pushed him out in 8 minutes. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it felt like an hour. So yeah, and that was just, I feel like it was such a different experience. Both of them, I had beautiful experiences. I don't regret like anything at all. But just being so connected, it made such a big difference. And it was scary and it did hurt a little bit more. I don't think it hurt more. I think I felt the pain a little bit more, but it wasn't a bad thing. It was hard, but it doesn't mean that it was a bad thing. And just feeling that connection, I felt like I had all the emotions that I felt like I was like supposed to have the first time because I could actually feel them and I was in my body for them. And so yeah, we just got to like cuddle up and rest, and my oldest came back home and we just got to snuggle. Both my boys were born 10 pounds 1 ounce. They were both
How
Yes,
consistent
exactly the
are you?
same. Very consistent. Yeah, my first was like 21 inches and my second was 22.5 inches long. So we have some tall boys.
And
But
how
yeah,
long was your labor with your second?
8 hours.
8 hours. Nice.
Yeah. So those are my two home birth stories. I always like have moms that are first time moms that are like, that wasn't, scary to do. I was like, no, it was scary for me personally to think about having to go to a hospital, and have to deal with that versus being at home.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm curious what your experience has been like specifically as a birth photographer also. Like what kind of photos are you taking? How do you navigate that for somebody who maybe is curious about being a birth photographer, like as a career, and then also people looking to hire?
From personal experience, yes. Yeah.
We're all
So
giggling because we were at a very long birth together.
we bonded. I feel like I've known you for a long time just because of that experience.
Many meals.
We did 3 days worth of meals.
Oh, actually, because we did interview her on the podcast, I will link Elizabeth's story because
Yes.
Amber was her photographer.
Yes, Elizabeth is incredible.
She is.
Getting into birth photography, I think I definitely had like an advantage of already knowing photography, already like having my skills honed in that area. Birth photography can come with like its own set of challenges creatively, as far as just like learning how to navigate very, very dark rooms or things like that. But I think that it's such a beautiful part of like what I get to do as a creative, because there's literally nothing you do, but there's nothing you can do to manipulate the scenarios that are happening. It's fully documentary. And so just get to capture the story as it's unfolding and as it's happening. And, getting the chance to tell the story in a way that's beautiful and just like a way for moms to be able to look back and see just what they did and see their strength. I think as you go through birth and as the mom, you don't get to see other people's the outside perspective of what they're watching you go through. Sometimes you feel like, oh my gosh, like I feel so weak in this moment, or I feel incapable, or I feel like I failed in some area. But as the part of the birth team and everybody else watching mom, like all we see is your strength and the grace and the determination that you have to navigate this and to get through this no matter and that's for whatever birth scenario you're in hospital, home. Like for a mom to give birth, it takes so much strength. And so I love that I get the honor. It's truly an honor when a client wants me to be in their birth space. I don't take that lightly. To me, that is a sacred role because I believe that everybody on your birth team has an impact on how things can go. And like that energy that you have in the room just can make the biggest difference. And you want people that support you and that can believe in you and fully align with like how you want your birth to go. Doesn't mean it always goes the way you want it to go, but you still want people cheering you on in that way. And so I think that was a big part of like my own experiences were a big part of why I jumped into birth photography. And yeah, I think if anybody's wanting to get into it, it's just to get into it with a heart of wanting to serve and be a part of supporting moms. Like you have to really just have that like genuine desire just to be supportive, and also just like know that it's going to take you for a ride. You are going to be more emotionally and mentally and physically invested in this than any part of any avenue of photography that you can like go into. And yeah, it's a once in a lifetime event that like I will never get over the magic of just like being able to capture somebody's birth story. I found that for my clients, the moms that I've talked to and gotten to document their stories, that the photos help them realize just one, how powerful and how strong they are, and then how much strength they have inside of them. It's a beautiful way to, capture obviously like the birth of your child, but it also shows the love that mom and dad have for each other. It shows the strength that you lean on each other for. It shows the trust and the openness that you have with your birth team, or not as well, but like it shows that it's just such a powerful way of being able to look back and be like, I did that. That's my story. That's a part of my, who I am. And to have that in pictures is just like such a special thing to me. And it can be really healing as well. I've documented births that have not gone the way that mom hoped that they would go, yet being able to look back on the photos that mom had, she was able to see that like she didn't fail. Like this wasn't something that she, didn't get to do because she wasn't strong enough. It was just how her story played out. And she can now look back on those photos and see like, okay, what was happening when, what things were going on, but also like it just gives it just gives a so much healing as especially when they're postpartum and trying to like process everything, and you're not fully like remembering everything that's happening, but yet you can look back at your pictures and be like, okay, like, no, I was really strong and I did this, and this is, part of my story. So
I remember ending up in the NICU with my son, and usually it like takes a little while to get the photos back. There's a lot of editing to be done and
sure.
a lot of photos to go through and call out. And I remember she sent a few over, probably like 10, but they like trickled in, but over the
Yeah.
first few days. And I remember being so grateful to go back to that because I
Yeah.
did have such a beautiful home birth. And even though here I am now, I loved like looking through those, even though they were literally like the day before or a couple of
Yeah.
days ago. It wasn't that long ago, but just like to be back in that space was so healing. And my husband financially was like, wait, how much? And I was so offended because I was a birth photographer at the time. I was like, excuse you. But he was like, okay, I mean, I'm just, and I was like, we are having a birth photographer. And then after she sent us this one photo, he was like, I would pay twice the amount of money just for that photo. And
Yeah.
yeah, but I would like you to speak to just like being on call because sometimes people are like taken aback by the price. And also, how much do people pay for wedding photographers? Weddings are like scheduled and during the day and a set amount of time. Birth photography is so unpredictable. And then people are, spending a lot of money on the baby. And so there's like, oh gosh,
Yes.
like where do we put our funds? Can you just speak to like being on call and the finances and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. You get it, Sophia. Yeah, I always tell people that are like, okay, that seems like kind of steep for birth photos. And I always point people back to like, how much did you pay for your wedding photos? If you like hired a good wedding photographer, they're gonna run anywhere from 5 to 10K these days. Like that's just the reality of it.
Mhm.
And then they're there at your wedding day for 10 hours, maybe 8 to 10 hours max. Obviously they'll do, some calls with you beforehand and then they'll work on editing all the photos and not discounting their work. It takes a lot to be a wedding photographer and like it's worth that value. But yeah, being a birth photographer, I've definitely had some like sticker shock when people get my pricing. I always do a connection call. I don't let people hire me before I speak to them on the phone because I want to make sure that like, hey, am I a good fit for you or are we a good fit? I'm going to be in your birth space. I take that very seriously. And I'm not just a camera in the room. I want to be there to support the women who hire me to my best ability, and I don't take on a lot of births because of that. When I'm a mom, I just don't want to be on call all of the time in these early days of raising my children. So I'm very selective in like what I'm taking on as far as birth photos go, like birth coverage goes. And then also when I'm on call, I go on call in 37 weeks. So I could be on call for up to a month. So from 37 up to 42 weeks. Is that more than a month? That's like 4 to 5 weeks, something like that. That means my phone is on 24/7. I sleep with it by my bed, ringers on. That way, if my client calls me, I am ready to go. I have a go bag, I have my gear packed. That means that if I'm gonna at an event for my children, I'm leaving that event to come, be by your side. That means that I'm waking up in the middle of the night, making sure my husband has the bottles and has the things to go ready to go, that I've packed my pump and all of that. And I don't say all that to be like, oh, this is everything that I have to do. No, it's an honor for me to do this. I love doing it, but there's a lot involved with it. So once I go on call, once you call me, like I'm there, I tell my clients to give me as much of a heads up as possible. I'm always telling them, like, text me if your mucus plug is coming out. It might not mean anything, but at least I know. Like, everything I want to be prepared because I have to like if it's during the day, I have to get childcare in and all the things. And so once I'm called to a birth, I'm there essentially from active labor until 2 hours postpartum. However, I have clients who call me earlier often, like they often call me earlier, and I'm typically there 2 to 3 hours postpartum to give space because I never want to rush that golden hour. And so I'm there's the minimums and then there's like kind of what's actually happening. The shortest amount of time I've been at a birth is 5 hours. The longest I've been at a birth is still 3 days.
Oh,
We
that's never a record you want to hold.
it's definitely not a record I hope to be breaking in my birth career, birth photography career. But, yeah, 3 days. That was the one we did with Elizabeth, and her story was incredible. It was such an honor to be a part of that. Part of that was like she was so far away from me that like I couldn't go home. I think if in traffic I think my drive home after leaving her birth was 4 hours. And so I
There's so
think
much
that
you could miss. If,
there's so much
yeah.
I could have missed. And it was incredible to be a part of that. But yeah, it did some births here locally where I'm like 20 minutes from wherever. I've been able to like be there and then come home for like 30 minutes to an hour and then go back or something like that. Um, but it's typically not like that. I for some reason, my other birth photographer friends and I laugh about it because it seems like I'm a magnet for long births. Like 5 hours, I've had like that happen like once, and then typically my births, I'm at a birth like 10 to 12 hours or more. Like I don't really have an in between. It's either really, really fast or like very, very long. So it's kind of funny, but I love it. And I'm typically like doing a lot more if mom needs more support and she's open to it and she's requested that of me. I'm a little bit more hands-on. Sometimes it takes a lot for me to like not be involved. I'm like, please let me just like get you some electrolytes or
I know,
or
because we were
something.
like, is she also a doula? We were
Yeah.
like, you are.
You totally like rotated in there with us and we're in the space
Yeah.
like caretaking her.
I know. I've talked to other birth photographers. I'm like, so what do you do when you're at a birth? They're like, oh, we just like go in, take photos, and then we'll go like rest or sit in the waiting room or something. I'm like, how do you do that? Because I literally cannot. Not all mom, like some moms have a doula, and I obviously never overstep that role. And I also like have I'm a I if it's not the right thing, then obviously like I'm letting mom like be in her space and do what she needs to do, unless she like asks me to be a part of it. But for a lot of my clients, we're just really connected, and it comes around like it kind of comes to that place naturally. So I'm in there like doing counter pressure and massages and bringing like just like electrolytes or waters or things like that. But I absolutely love it. I actually have been able to mentor with a local midwife here. So she's like kind of giving me some advice and training and resources to kind of just grow in that area. I haven't gotten officially certified. I'm not sure if that's something that I really want to do at this point in time. However, I always want to grow in my abilities and tools to be able to serve women and to really support them, especially in their birth experience. So I don't think that any of it's like a negative thing to be equipped with. So I love it so much. I've kind of added on a little bit of like, if you want doula support, like this is kind of what you can add on, but I'm in no way saying like I'm officially like certified to like be
Yeah.
your doula. But yeah, it's just so back to what you're
Well, there
saying, which is
are
like,
some things that are like important to know, and also like it's just like showing up and holding space and loving someone and
100%.
recognizing, like being aware and being like, she
Mhm.
hasn't eaten in a while, like she's
Yes.
probably thirsty, her feet feel cold, just like being
Yes.
aware of what her needs are.
Attunement. It's
Attunement.
attunement to the space.
Yes, 100%. And often like you show up and for the moms I work with that like haven't hired a doula or anything, sometimes like it's dad's first time going through this too. And as a woman, like as a mom, I've done this twice and I attended birth. So like you said, it's a tuning into like what mom needs and stuff. And so just being able to help guide dad into like, no, 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 counter pressure this way.
Yeah.
Or, like do it, these kind of things can be supportive. And just offering suggestions. I never like come in and tell clients like this is what you need to do. It's always saying, hey, this is an option if you want it. And this could be really helpful if that feels good for you. So, but yeah, like going back into the photography part of it, when I'm there, there's no posing, there's no like, obviously, like there's no setting the scene or anything like that. Birth photography is very documentary. My goal is
So
to
I
tell
have a
the story.
question about that. Did you have any fears in the beginning of like missing a shot? I
100%.
remember that was a big fear of mine, especially if the room was really dark or something, where you're
Mhm.
like, oh my God, like you can't redo it. You can't be
No,
like,
you,
wait, shoot, I didn't get that.
yeah,
But the other
you
benefit
can't.
is neither of the client or the parent knows what shot you thought that you missed.
Yes,
Unless it's like baby emerging out.
that's the one I'm looking
Exactly. Yeah,
at.
that's the
What?
one. Yeah, it's
It's
always.
like missing the first kiss at a wedding and being like,
Yeah, except like you have an exact timeline lead up to when that first kiss
yeah,
at the wedding is.
yes.
You don't have an exact timeline lead up to when baby's emerging because sometimes it can take 20 minutes, two
Yeah,
hours to push out a
yeah.
baby. Sometimes it can take 30 seconds.
Or like it's by candlelight and then the midwife turns a flashlight on and now your settings are all wrong. Like,
You're saying, yeah, you just have to kind of like roll with it. Yeah, it makes it exciting for sure. I always get that like huge burst of adrenaline, and
yeah.
I go back. The number of times I'm like, I totally messed the shot. I didn't get it, and then you go back. You're like, okay, no, I did okay. I had this one birth where it was in a hospital, and mom was about to push baby out, and they like asked her to get on the bed and all of that. And so like there was no space. I'm literally like standing over the bed just thinking like this is the worst angle in the world to get this photo of, but I have nowhere else to go. And like baby shot out of her. And so it was just one of those things where I was just like, hope we got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Hold it over your head and click.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's where you just rely, especially like I've had many years of experience in photography. You just rely on like those intuitive skills that you've like really built, and know that like, okay, I'm confident that we have got something. Hopefully it's like fully in focus. Hopefully it's not soft, but if it is, like I always tell the moms I work with, like these photos are incredibly special, and they're like I'm going to do my best to deliver the highest quality possible, but because things happen in the way they do, like birth photography is not about perfect photos. And so they know that, they see the galleries that I deliver, and
You're like, this one's gonna have a grainy black and white feel.
I also
Your photos though is I feel like I'm like
Yeah.
after Elizabeth's birth and like what you posted, I was like, oh, it feels warm, like I'm in that space again. And like that makes it feel human, approachable. Like I want to go back to the moment the way it was.
And
not
raw.
like a perfectly edited version.
Yeah, like they are edited, but like it feels raw.
It feels raw. Yeah, it feels warm. It feels like, oh, I remember that oxytocin of that moment.
Yeah, I love that because that's my goal. I always tell my moms, like, even if so one of the things I walk through with my clients, my birth clients, is that like, okay, do you feel like I talk to them the difference of like having a flash photography in their space, of not having flash photography. I have a lot of moms request me not to use a flash at all, which I'm okay with. I just have to like help educate on like, okay, like if you don't want flash, like these are the kind of like scenarios that you'll have to anticipate, and please have like more than just a candle burning in your birth space and that kind of thing. I always try to bring back up like twinkle lights or something too, just to have something.
Don't underestimate a bathroom light turned on with a cracked door.
100%, yes, exactly that.
You're like, I'm not gonna ask permission, I'll just see if she tolerates it.
Flip it on last minute, especially if they're pushing. I've done that before. I'm like, by the way, you're fully like pushing out a baby. You don't know what I'm doing. No. Always with consent. And so, yeah, it's just, there's a lot. I try to take the time to like inform my clients of like, these are the different scenarios. If you want a clear, crisp image, like, yes, I'm going to have to put my flash on. But Sophia, you get it. The black foamy thing, like it's just a nice little tool in the birth world that we put over a flash to kind of deflect the light. There's never a flash pointing directly at mom or baby. And I offer different galleries for my clients to visually see like, okay, like this is what this looks like and this is what it looks like without it. And I always tell my clients as well, like if I am in your space and you are all of a sudden like feeling overwhelmed, or you just need a minute, like tell me, please communicate that to me. I obviously tried to read the room and stuff, but I just opened that door because I feel like so many moms go into birth and then they feel like they still have to host their birth team and be like hostess and take care of them. And I just want them to know like, no, like you do not have to, like your job is to focus on you. My job is to, one, read the room, and two, listen to what your wishes are, because you are in control. This is your birth experience. And I can always take a break, step back, and then kind of like feel out when is a good time to start like taking photos again. Birth photography, I feel like people think like, oh, that feels like a lot of photos in my face or whatever, and it's really not. I feel like a good birth photographer knows when to take pictures, when not to take pictures, how to take them when the least intrusive way possible. In it. So like that's all part of what I think about and I will look for. I think one of the biggest things I've learned from midwives and midwife teams is just being able to hold space and observe without doing anything. And so walking into a space and just sitting and holding space and then proceeding with like, okay, now I can start documenting. Now I can see like what's going on. And I think that's really powerful. So yeah, like we were talking about, like I've been at a birth for a variety of hours. I don't cap my hours. I don't think that, I know I've heard of some like birth photographers capping like, oh, I'll only be there 8 hours, I'll only be there 10 hours. And I never want to do that because I don't think that's helpful when you're approaching your birth to have that kind of like stress on mom to be like, okay, like when do I call? Because it can only happen for this amount of hours. But also I want to be there for your story. And if that story takes 3 days, then I'm there for 3 days. So
well, if anyone's listening and is like, how can I contact you either for photography or to reach out about like becoming a birth photographer, how do they reach you?
You can always find me through my website, ambermoonphoto.com, or on Instagram at ambermoonphoto. And yeah, feel free definitely to reach out. And taking one more birth for this year. And then obviously 2026 is, moms are already expecting 2026 babies. So feel free to reach out for that too. But yeah, Instagram or my website are the best ways to get in touch with me.
And Northern California, but like, what is your range?
I go to the Bay Area. Sacramento is where I'm based out of, but I'm willing to go to Bay Area if that's like if it's the right fit. If I get to work with you guys again, for sure.
Okay, well, if you're our client and you're listening, call Amber.
Yeah, I'm just obsessed with you guys. So, but yeah, Placer, Sacramento counties, all the way up to Yuba and Sutter, and then Bay Area on a case by case basis. So
great. Yeah. We'll put all that in the show notes.
Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please rate, review, and subscribe. If you'd like to follow along, you can find us on Instagram at Born Wild Podcast and Facebook. You can go to our website at www.bornwildmidwifery.com. See you later.